But my name's Todd Briner, and just before I get started today, I wanted just to thank you guys, because I know there's so many of you that have been praying for our student ministry for the longest time. Some of you have been praying for our students well before I even got here about 10 years ago, and so I want to thank you for that. But to start our message today, I need you guys to jump in your time machines. I need you to fire them up to 88 miles per hour and go back with me to the 2004 Summer Olympics. We're at the 50-meter rifle three-position shooting competition, and we're at the very last round. We're watching Matt Emmons, who has so far dominated the competition. In the very last round, all he has to do is score an 8.0, and he wins the gold. His lowest shot yet was a 9.3. So as Matt gets ready for this final shot, he's stepping up. He's visualizing the podium. With him standing right in the middle, he's seeing Old Glory go up, and he's hearing, "Oh, say, can you see?" And he's visualizing the gold medal, what he's worked his entire life for. And so he gets up to his lane. He looks down his lane. He sights the target. He pulls up his rifle, lowers it down, gets the bullseye in his sights, takes a deep breath, pulls the trigger, bullseye, gold medal. But for some reason, the electronic scoring system doesn't go off. It doesn't go off. It doesn't register a shot. Everybody saw it hit the bullseye, but there's no score given. The judges start to get in there wondering what to do. We've never had this happen before. How are we going to fix this? And they're like, okay, well, this is Matt Emmons. He's like the LeBron James of rifle shooting. Pastor Brady would have said Michael Jordan, but I'm a little bit younger, so they said, we'll just let him shoot again. We'll just let him shoot one more time, and he'll get the goal, get like a 9 point something, and boom, we'll be done. And so he gets back in the lane, goes over the same exact thing, sights the target, pulls his rifle up, and as he's getting ready to lower the rifle, and he's getting ready to take that deep breath and pull the trigger, the judges come and say, no, stop, you can't shoot. And see, they said, we realized what happened. You did hit the bullseye, but you hit the bullseye on target 3, and you were shooting in target 2. He scores a 0.0 and goes from sure gold medal, oh, say, can you see, to 8th place. Why? Because he lost focus. Because he took just a little bit of focus off, something he had thought would be easy, something he had done time and time again, and he focused on the wrong thing, and he lost. Here's what I need you to do, though. I need you to get back in your time machine. This time we're going from 2004 to 2008, fired up to 88 miles per hour, and now we're at the Beijing Olympics. Same event, same shooter. If I'm lying, I'm dying. Last shot. This time, Matt Emmons has been dominating the competition like never before. This time, all he has to get to secure the gold is a 6.7. Again, he's got the visual of him in the center of the podium. He's got the vision of the stars and stripes. And say, he's ready. 6.7, easy. Nobody scores below a 6.7. These are world-class shooters. And you know what he's double-checking this time, right? You know what he's double-checking. So he sights the target. I'm guessing he probably looks down oh, two, good. He pulls the rifle up, and as he's lowering it down, like I said, if I'm lying, I'm dying. His finger hits the trigger just a little early. The bullet shoots out the gun, hits the target, and he scores a 4.4, sending him to the very worst place you can get in the Olympics. You got gold, silver, bronze, and there's no aluminum, so he got fourth. Why? Because he lost focus. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today, and the importance of focusing on Jesus. The importance of just putting our focus on him, and how focusing on Jesus can help us out in so many ways in our lives. If you got your Bibles, you can look with me at Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. This kind of gives us the foundation for what we're talking about. This talks about how focusing on Jesus can help us. It says this: therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. So it says, let's get rid of the hindrances, the distractions, the things that maybe they're not sinful, but they just eat up our time. And then it says, let us get rid of the sin that so easily tangles, and so let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. What's it say? Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of the faith. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. If we were to look at one thing today, and there was one thing you're able to go home, the big idea, the sermon in a sentence, well, 3 words. It's simply this: focus on Jesus. Focus on Jesus. The more you focus on Jesus, the better your life will be. It doesn't mean that things will be perfect, but you'll be able to get through things more. Today, we're looking at a miracle. You saw it introduced in our video. It's a common miracle. It's one that you've probably heard before, but just so you kind of put it in the stage, where it was, what was happening, it takes place right after our miracle we looked at last week, which actually what happened was Jesus took his followers and he sent them out to go to all the towns and all the cities and preach the gospel. And these guys were going this way and that and there and there. And they're spreading the message of Jesus. And the Bible teaches that they come back to Jesus. And they're going to do like a debrief, a ministry debrief. But they can't, because so many people are interested in finding out about Jesus, that when more people got unleashed to share the gospel, more people come back, and you got 5,000 men, maybe 20,000 people, and Jesus feeds them. It's the feeding of the 5,000 with 12 baskets of food left over. And so I was thinking about this, and I don't know, this is kind of how my mind went, but these people would have probably had more in their bellies than they ever had before. And I'm guessing the disciples, they were full, like full. Like their stomachs are incredibly full and they're about ready to get on a stormy boat ride. So here we go. We're picking up in Matthew chapter 14, verse 22. Matthew chapter 14, verse 22, right after the feeding of the 5,000, as full as they've ever been, probably seeing one of the most incredible miracles you could see at the time, and seeing like their ministry is expanding, they're reaching people, things are going great. And it says this: immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up to the mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. And so Jesus has let them go. He's putting them across the sea. This is a sea they would have known, the lake or sea they would have known for years. Many of the people had grown up working on the sea, and there starts to be a major storm. So shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. They think it's a ghost. They think it's something coming to get them. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." This really has nothing to do with the message, but I do want to just say, when I read that and I studied that, and I just thought, man, isn't that true? We don't have to be afraid because Jesus is with us. Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid. And then Peter, the guy who always speaks up, he says, "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." I think it's interesting that they picked Peter, and Peter stood out. We know he was always the one who kind of spoke it out, spoke his mind, but he's probably also the one who would have known more that walking on water is just not a thing. Like, you are a fisherman, you've been doing this your whole life, it's a family business, so you probably grew up watching it. Probably the first thing he found out is when I go in water, I sink. I'm sure I lived in Florida. When you live in Florida, you got to teach your kids to swim at an early age because there's water everywhere. I'm sure Peter learned how to swim very early because he realized you cannot walk on water. And come, he said. Then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. Cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. So here's the picture. Here's the picture we see. When Peter is focusing on Jesus, he gets out the boat, he doesn't sink, and he walks toward Jesus. He's walking towards Jesus. Then what happens is he looks around and he gets distracted by all the things going on around him, by the wind, the waves, and he gets afraid. But this stood out to me. When he refocused on Jesus, what happened? Jesus saved him. Jesus saved him. So he starts with focus. He's walking on water. He gets distracted by all the things going on around him, the troubles, the hardships, the wind, the waves, the danger. But then he says, "Lord, save me." And he reached out his hand and caught him immediately. And he says this, "You have little faith," he said. "Why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Today, we're looking at one big idea. It's this: focus on Jesus. Focus on Jesus. I want to give us three things that I think focus on Jesus can really help us with. You can write them down if you like. They'll be on the screens. But here's the first one. When the storms of life hit, focus on Jesus. When life gets tough, when life gets difficult, focus on Jesus. I got the privilege of speaking to our college-age kids this week. They meet every Tuesday at 7 o'clock right here in the chapel this summer. It was awesome. And they finished a series on 2 Thessalonians. And in there, I was able to tell them that if anyone has told you or taught you or you thought that just because you're a follower of Jesus, everything is great. Not true. Not true. Not true. In fact, I think the Bible teaches us that things always aren't that great. That you will face persecution and difficulties. Rather, what happens is Jesus says, you can focus on me when things get difficult. You can look to me when things get difficult, and I will help you. When the storms of life hit, focus on Jesus. In Matthew chapter 7, 24 through 27, Jesus has just finished his biggest teaching ever. It's called the Sermon on the Mount. It's found in Matthew 5, 6, and 7. If you've never read it, read it. When I read it as a 17-year-old kid in high school, it would open my eyes to what Jesus really taught us as how we should live as followers. And here's what he says at the end of that. He's just given his teaching. He's basically laid out how to live the Christian life, and he says this: "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. like someone who focused on Jesus. They built their house on his teaching. It says this, the rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. So person one, the beginning of the section we're looking at, they focus on Jesus. The storms come, the difficulties come, the troubles come, the heartache comes, the diagnosis, the loss of job, the end of the relationship, the turmoil in life. But they kept focusing on Jesus. They built their life on him. But then it says this, but everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. Same storms, same wind, same rain, different foundation, different focus. One person focused on building their life on Jesus. The other person focused on just having a life. One stood, one was destroyed. When the storms of life hit, focus on Jesus. If you want to highlight something on your thing, you might want to underline the word when, because it's not an if, it's a when. They are coming. And some of you will focus on Jesus and will weather those storms. And some of us will not and will crash. So when the storms of life hit, focus on Jesus. Number two, when you are struggling with sin, focus on Jesus. When you're struggling with sin, focus on Jesus. If there was any of the three that I'm going to give you today that really stood out to me, it's this one, because I learned something with this that I'm going to teach you guys about 15 years ago, and it radically changed my life. See, here's what I think happens a lot of times. We're struggling with a sin, and you can put any sin in there. It can be language, it can be what you look at, it can be anything, relational, anger, you can put it in there. And oftentimes what will happen is we'll have this desire, especially after we go to church, and God will put in our heart like, man, I want to be free from that sin. I want to stop going into that. I don't want to keep going over and over into the same thing. I want to be free. But here's what ends up happening. We think about that sin, that thing we're struggling with so much, even though we're wanting to be free, even though we're wanting to get it out of our life, we end up going back into it. There's a saying that says this, what you resist persists. What you resist persists. The word to use is not resist, it's replace. Because what you resist persists. Now, 15 years ago, I learned about a concept. It was a motorcycle concept called target fixation. And here's what the guy taught me. He said, when you're a motorcycle rider, and I had a bunch of people after the Thursday service verify that this is how they were taught when they were learning how to ride a motorcycle. When you have a motorcycle, when you're taught how to ride a motorcycle, if you see something that you don't want to hit, like an object in a road, a parked car, a pole, a pothole, roadkill, that what you do is focus on something else. Because they say every time, even if you focus on the parked car and you say, I don't want to hit the car, 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 I really don't want to hit the car, because you've been thinking about it in your mind, you hit the car. Because you're focused on it, because your target is fixated on it. You can look it up on YouTube and you can see people that just boom in the back of cars, hit things right off the road because they focused on where they didn't want to go. Rather, here's what they teach motorcycle riders. If there is an object in the road, if there is a place you don't want to hit, do not focus on what you don't want to hit, where you don't want to go. Rather, fix your eyes on where you do want to go. Fix your eyes on where you want to take the bike. Fix your eyes on where you want your life to go. Here's the deal. I think this is such a great principle because it's the same for our lives. Don't focus on where we don't want to go. Don't focus on the sin we're struggling with. Why? Because what you resist persists. What you stare at, what you focus on is where you're going to go. So instead of focusing on that sin that you're struggling with, focus on Jesus. Now, you probably wonder why there's boxes out here. Some of y'all, you've just been looking at the boxes for the whole time. What's he going to do with the boxes? Some of you seen what I don't do before, and you know there's going to be something. And so here's what I love to do. I want to lock this into your mind like it was locked into my mind 15 years ago. Because I'm telling you, whenever I'm struggling with sin, whenever I'm doing this, I'm focusing on Jesus. So let me help you guys see what I'm talking about today. Would that be okay if I show you guys? Oh, yeah, this is great. Man, you were way better on Thursday. Thursday's like, no, let's end it, pray, let's go home. No, I'm just kidding. They were a great congregation. But we're going to use these boxes, and these boxes are going to be sin. And I don't know what it is for you, but just go ahead, and if there's a sin you're struggling with, or maybe that you struggled with before, go ahead and put that in your mind here, okay? Go ahead and put that sin in your mind, whether it's a relationship thing, whether it's something you're struggling with, what you're looking at, what you're consuming, what you're watching, your anger, your language, your finances, whatever it is, your sin. And what do we say today? If we want to get free from sin, we don't just look at sin, because sin's what we want to avoid. Sin's what we don't want to go into. And so we don't just want to keep thinking about that, even if we're thinking about all the different ways we can get out of it, all the behavior modification, like, I can put this on my phone, I can put this block, and that's good, but it's not real effective. What we said today is that it's not about focusing on where we don't want to go. It's about focusing on where we do want to go. This is my friend, Plushy Jesus. Just so you know, I know we have kids in here. His head's a little struggling, but we'll get it. This is not really Jesus. It is a plush Jesus. If you would like to get a hug of Jesus afterwards, I will be taking $5 bills and giving hugs out for them. I'm going to have a good lunch today. All right, come on, Jesus. There we go. And so here's what we're teaching. That if I don't want to go to sin, if I don't want to continue in the sin, I don't keep focusing on that. I focus on Jesus. So what this teaches is that even if in my mind I say I'm not going to sin, I'm not going to sin, I'm not going to look at it, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it, that because I'm thinking about it, that I'm going to go that way. But hold on. Safety first. It's really crazy to think that if I focus on even being free from the sin, even if I'm thinking, I don't want to do it, 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 I want to stop, I got to get free from that, I'm giving that up, I'm giving that up, I'm giving up, no, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. See, there was a reason I wore the helmet. But do you see the thing? Do you see the idea? Even if we're committed, even if in our mind we want to be free from that sin area in our lives, if we're focusing on it, we'll go there. Remember what we said, you resist persists. Rather, if we say, you know what, I'm going to focus on Jesus. I'm going to focus on him. I'm going to get up and start my day with him. I'm going to focus on him throughout the day. I'm going to listen to the music in the car that will be God-honoring. And what if it happens when I focus on Jesus and I drive to Jesus? I'm closer to Jesus, and I'm also farther from sin. That's in the past. Why? Because I focused on Jesus. And yes, maybe you'll get some success every now and again when you just work hard, when you say, I'm going to change some of my things in my life to try to avoid that sin, but you still won't be closer to Jesus. Focus on Jesus when you're struggling with sin. Here's the last one. When you need to step out in faith, focus on Jesus. When you need to take a step of faith, when there's something in your life that you need to take a step of faith in, focus on Jesus. Peter stepped out of the boat. He looked at Jesus, focused on him, and he went that direction. I don't know for you what your step out of the boat challenge might be or what God's calling you to do, but focus on Jesus. What's that next step you need to take? What's that step out of the boat? Here's one of the interesting things that I think I've noticed for students, and maybe it's something that you've noticed too. We have this thing to my left called the next steps room, and next steps are really easy to think about. When you think about next step is giving your life to Jesus. Okay, yeah, that's a next step. I don't know Jesus personally. Jesus is saying come, and I haven't come yet. That's an easy next step. And then almost every week we see people getting baptized. We understand that next step as well. But here's what I found out with students. That when they have taken those two next steps, it's like they sometimes don't know what the next step is. I've given my life to Jesus. I'm coming to church maybe. I got baptized, so what's my next step? That's what I'm saying. What's the step God's calling you to step out of the boat? Today is a great day for this message because, like Pastor Brady said, we have Envy Connect outside today. It's going to talk about ways that you can get connected in a small group. And if you are a male, 6 a.m. Wednesday morning, legit, you can come to my group. We've got ages from like 19 to 70. You can come. Picked up a new guy on Thursday. But what's that step? Maybe it's serving. Maybe it's using your skills and talents for Jesus. One of my best friends that avoided sin by focusing on Jesus, you know what he did? He just used his free time. He was a single man in his 30s, and he just used his free time to serve. He came from a family of non-Christians, and he said, Todd, if I'm not spending my time serving Jesus, what would I be doing? Where would I be going? What would I be into? And I was like, man, makes a lot of sense. Maybe it's to go into the mission field there. I don't know. But there's a next step for all of us in here. And if you want to take it, if you want to step out of the boat, focus on Jesus. So the three things today. The three things today. Focus on Jesus. When you need to step out in faith, focus on Jesus. When the storms of life hit, focus on Jesus. When you're struggling with sin, focus on Jesus. Focus on Jesus. Let's pray. God, I just thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to just really share some principles that have transformed my life. And I pray that they would transform the lives of the people here. that no matter what age they are, the younger the better, that they would build their lives on focusing on you, that whatever struggle they might be in right now, whatever hardship, whatever storm's hitting, may they not focus on the wind and the waves in their lives, but may they focus on you, Jesus. For those here who are struggling with sin, and maybe it's something they've been working on a long time, they've been trying to get free, I pray that they wouldn't resist, but they would replace all the thoughts of that sin by focusing on you. And Lord, lastly, I pray that we be a church of people that step out in faith and take faith steps when it comes to living for you, and that we would focus on you in those. Lord, I pray that next steps would be taken, and that our focus on you that we've had for the last hour will continue on throughout this entire week. Lord, just thank you so much, and I pray this in the powerful name of Jesus. Amen.